ਮੋਹਨ ਗਿੱਲ ਇੱਕ ਵਾਰ ਫਿਰ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਭ ਦਾ ਕਲਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਗ ਸੰਗ ਦੇ ਵਿਹੜੇ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦਾ ਹੈ। ਬਹੁਤ ਬਹੁਤ ਧੰਨਵਾਦ ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਹੋਣ ਲਈ। ਤੁਹਾਡਾ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਥਾਪੜਾ ਉਹ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸ਼ਕਤੀ ਦਿੰਦਾ। ਹਰ ਹਫ਼ਤੇ ਇਸੇ ਕਰਕੇ ਆ ਕੇ ਤੁਹਾਡੇ ਸਾਹਮਣੇ ਹਾਜ਼ਰ ਹੋਈਦਾ। ਜਿਵੇਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਜਾਣਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿ ਕਲਾ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਬੰਧਿਤ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਬਾਤਾਂ ਆਪਾਂ ਇਸ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ 'ਚ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ, ਕਲਾਮਈ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤਾਂ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਉਸੇ ਲੜੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਮੇਰੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਮ ਤੌਰ 'ਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਲੇਖਕਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਗੱਲਾਂ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅੱਜ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਾਣ ਆ ਅਤੇ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਬੜੀ ਖੁਸ਼ੀ ਆ ਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਸਾਡਾ ਲੇਖਕ ਜਿਸ ਦਾ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਨਾਵਲ ਛਪਿਆ ਹੈਗਾ ਹਾਊਐਵਰ ਫਾਰ ਅਵੇ, ਰਜਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਸਿੰਘ ਪਾਲ, ਉਹ ਸਾਡੇ ਨਾਲ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਸ਼ਾਮਲ ਨੇ। ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਤਾਜ਼ਾ ਨਾਵਲ ਆਇਆ, ਉਸ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ 2 ਕਵਿਤਾਵਾਂ ਦੀਆਂ ਕਿਤਾਬਾਂ ਇੰਗਲਿਸ਼ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਛਪ ਚੁੱਕੀਆਂ ਨੇ। ਆਓ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਰਜਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਜੀ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦਾ ਸਵਾਗਤ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਰਜਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ ਜੀ, ਕਲਾ ਦੇ ਅੰਗ ਸੰਗ ਵਿੱਚ ਵੈਲਕਮ।
Thank you, ਸਤਿ ਸ਼੍ਰੀ ਅਕਾਲ ਜੀ। Thank you for having me, doing me the honor of having me on your show.
ਥੈਂਕ ਯੂ ਸੋ ਮਚ। ਮੈਂ ਥੋੜ੍ਹਾ ਜਿਹਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਘੱਟ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ, ਸਾਡੀ ਥੋੜ੍ਹੀ ਜਿਹੀ ਮਿਕਸਚਰ ਗੱਲਬਾਤ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਅਤੇ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ 'ਚ ਹੋਊਗੀ, ਸੋ ਪਲੀਜ਼ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਮਾਈਂਡ ਨਾ ਕਰਨਾ। ਰਜਿੰਦਰਪਾਲ, ਫਸਟ ਆਫ ਆਲ, ਯੂ ਵਰ ਬੋਰਨ ਇਨ ਇੰਡੀਆ।
I was born in India, in Punjab, but we left India. The entire family had moved to England by the time I was 5.
5 years old.
So I did not get a chance to go to school in India. All my schooling was done. We actually moved to London, England, and I lived there for 10 years. I was schooled there, and I ended up in a grammar school in London. We were the last year of the grammar school, public boys. And then at age 15, we moved to Calgary. Canada, yes. Yeah.
And then your next study was in Calgary.
My next study, my degree that I did, which is a biochemistry bachelor's degree, I did actually in Calgary at the University of Calgary. Yeah.
As a job, you worked with Johnson & Johnson most of the life, or just?
For 20 years, I was with Johnson & Johnson, but I spent almost 30 years in the healthcare business.
Healthcare business.
So my job involved sales and marketing to mostly hospitals, either diagnostic labs, and then towards the latter days of my career, into the surgical departments.
Surgical department. Yeah. I can understand that.
Yeah.
Johnson, when you're talking about Johnson & Johnson, it's medical.
Yes.
And surgical. They specialize in most of the things over there.
Yes.
And you just lived here, there, and everywhere.
So I've lived in a few places across Canada. It's at 24 years in Calgary. Then I actually lived in Vancouver for 4 years. And the book is actually set in Vancouver. We'll talk more about that. Johnson & Johnson also moved me to the United States, to New Jersey, and I lived there for 3 years.
2 years.
And now I'm based out of Toronto. I've been there 13 years. But I'm retired now, so no longer working in the healthcare business. And that retirement happened about 6 years ago now. And since then, I've sort of dedicated myself to completing this novel and getting it out.
Keeping the job aside,
Yes.
Since you were born, you have a different kind of nature. And I remember one time you just took off you were a young man, you just for 4 months,
Yes.
Alone
Yeah.
just went to India.
Yes.
To explore it. Tell me about that.
So in 1991, I had not been back to India since we left when I was 5. And I had a real yearning to sort of understand the culture, to see the country. And I did want to go to Punjab, but I was also very much interested in seeing other parts of India. So I took a 4-month leave of absence. I was working as a lab technician back then, and landed in Bombay, went to Goa, went to Rajasthan, went to Himachal Pradesh, went down to Gujarat.
Just alone?
Alone, but then I would also meet other travelers.
Over there, but from here you went alone?
But from here I went alone.
And you got robbed too?
I got robbed on my 3rd day in Goa. All my money, the only thing I was left with was my money and my passport, because I had those on a belt around my waist. My luggage, my clothes, my cameras, my books, they were all taken.
How did you survive without that?
You know what? It was a tough emotional time. I went back and forth between thinking maybe I should go back to England, reconnect with the family, and then come back. But I remember going for a walk. I was in Goa. I remember going for a morning walk. I was passing by a rice field. There was a young girl, maybe 6 years old. She had one of her brothers in one hand. She had her other brother in her arm. And there was just the perfect scene. And I thought, I can't let somebody else ruin this trip for me. I've planned this trip for so long that I can't let somebody else ruin it, and I'm just going to continue. And like I said, luckily I had my money and my passport. And I met a lot of very generous people. I met an English couple. He gave me a couple of pairs of jeans, some T-shirts, so I had some clothes again. I met these two Irish women, and we ended up traveling together for over a month together. So we just you find a way to adapt.
So, you just went through buses, trains,
Yes.
and rickshaws, and all those things.
Yes, absolutely.
And you didn't know anything about that before you left.
No.
And you learned it while going through there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And some Gora told you when you got robbed, he said that now you will settle.
I met a Gora traveler who'd actually been traveling through India for almost a year. And he said to me, if you don't get ripped off at least once a day in India, then you're not really seeing India. So if you want to experience it fully, then you've got to put yourself in those situations where...
So they were talking from experience.
Yes.
Now coming back to you, like you have a literary blood in you.
Yes.
Because your dad, he is well respected, very good writer in Punjabi. And not only he wrote poetry in Punjabi, but he also worked with the associations in UK.
Yes.
Now, when we were in UK, his name, everybody, when his name comes, everybody bows with respect for him. How do you feel about that?
My relationship with my father is interesting because I did not see him for the first 5 years of my life. He was already in England setting up a home for us. So when I was 5, he came back to India. He basically got the rest of the family ready to move to England to create a new life for us. And then in 1975, when I was age 10, he passed away. So I only knew him for 5 years of my life. So, and in those 5 years, he was very busy. He was busy with the poetry. He was busy with the Indian Writers Association. He had some, political connections. He had a lot of friends. So I remember those 5 years quite vividly, but I don't think we ever really had a huge, deep relationship. So when it came time to sort of figuring out, in my late 20s, I wanted to really try and get to know who he was. And for me, what made the most sense in terms of trying to figure out who he was to write poetry. To write in the same craft that he wrote in. And to, although my Punjabi skills weren't there, I started writing poetry in English. And the title of my first book is actually Papaji Wrote Poetry in a language I cannot read.
Oh, I see. Oh, what a tribute. Then you have another book, poetry book after that. And they were so well received and you won some awards. And
Papaji Wrote Poetry won the Alberta Book Award for Best First Book. My second book, Pulse, which I have here, was shortlisted for both the W.O. Mitchell City of Calgary Prize and the Alberta Writers Guild Best Book of Poetry for that year.
Wonderful.
So, and the books did very well, got my name out there. But then I actually took a long break in between the second book and the novel which I've just released.
So how did you came from poetry to fiction?
I'll give you the full story of how I started writing this book. And I was actually living in Vancouver at the time. I was living in Kitsilano.
The book is also set up in downtown and
Yes.
that area.
The book starts and ends in Kitsilano.
Yeah.
A large part of the story is also in Surrey.
Surrey.
Right? It was my first summer of living in Vancouver. I was sitting on a park bench in Kitsilano. It was a beautiful day. You had the ocean, you had the North Shore Mountains, cloudless, blue sky. And a Indo-Canadian gentleman ran past me, you know, running. And I immediately started to think of, I wonder what that gentleman's story is. And that afternoon, I actually came home and I wrote 7 pages. I wrote what is essentially the opening scene in However Far Away. I wrote that afternoon.
I will like you to start.
Okay.
Just to show the taste of the book. A paragraph from we always read poetry.
Yes.
Why not we read a paragraph from a novel?
Yes.
So let us start with that.
Okay. ਆਪਣੀ ਕਮਿਊਨਿਟੀ ਵਿੱਚ ਇਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਵੱਡਾ ਵਿਆਹ ਹੋਵੇਗਾ ਦੁਨੀਆ ਚੇਤੇ ਰੱਖੂਗੀ Uncle Monty's command replays in Devinder's mind that today's wedding will be the biggest Vancouver Sikh community has ever seen and will endure in the collective memory for many years to come. An event fit for the eldest son of the eldest son of the Sandhu dynasty. Devinder is confident that everyone will play their part, falling into their practiced and predictable patterns, and that the delicate composition of his life will not go off script.
Wonderful. I think you caught the. That's how everybody thinks when they want to go through the wedding of their children. This is how we think. All of us. And you got the whole sense of that. And this paragraph actually starts the whole thing very well. And then you started writing. It took you how many, 19, 16 years?
From the time that I wrote that opening scene when I was living in Kitsilano to the time it was published is 19 years.
19 years.
19 years. But I have to say there was probably about 12 years in there in which I didn't do any writing at all. I was working with Johnson & Johnson. It was a busy career. I was moving up the ladder there, and that sort of took over my life for a while. But I also saw it as a means to an end, that working this job and working this career is what's going to allow me to get to the point where I can write full time, right? Which is what I'm doing now.
And you are retired, early retirement, and you are doing that.
Yes.
And you are enjoying it.
Yes, absolutely. It's very rewarding, I have to say. I mean, writing this book is probably the most complicated and challenging thing I've ever done in my life. Right, putting together the story, the structure, the characters, capturing. What I also wanted to do was capture our culture, but in a very reverent way, to pay respect to the culture, to write about. And the theme of the wedding day is such a rich circumstance in which secrets come to life, things happen, the characters reveal themselves in a way. So the wedding day also is used as part of the structure because it seemed to me a very rich source for capturing the culture that we are from. Right?
I think that's what we expect from you. Like when from like a boy who was born in Punjab and grown up in UK and lived in a Punjabi family.
Yes.
When you are writing, we want you to show the real Punjabi family.
Yes.
And here, not only you are showing a Punjabi family, you are showing Punjabi wedding.
Yes.
Even though you show a different kind of secrets and all those love affairs, this and everything, but overall impact, you show it very positively.
The response I'm getting from non-Punjabi readers is that they are learning a lot about the culture from reading this book. They're learning things about the importance of the turban and what that means to us. They're learning about what I would say are fundamental Punjabi Sikh values, the value of commitment to family, the value of generosity, the value of seva. I think they're hopefully all getting that out of this book and learning just how rich our culture is.
It's not story of those characters. It's the whole story of our culture
Yes.
as well.
Yes.
You knowingly did that. You wanted to show that.
Absolutely. Yes.
From like when your characters are playing part.
Yeah.
At the same time, you knowingly bring out like when somebody goes into the room, you're very descriptive. Like you show how that room is set up.
Yes.
You knowingly did that?
Absolutely. I mean, I wanted to also capture my characters. I wanted to feel very real. I wanted them to feel like people we might meet every day, people that we might run into at a function, right? They have their flaws. They have their character flaws, but they're no different from you and I, really.
Yeah.
You know, at their
You
spirit.
relate to them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
And now, first you wrote a novel,
Yes.
and you have your novel in your hand.
Yes.
What did you do next to publish it?
So once, it's actually a long journey. So once I had the novel written in a way, what I called the first draft, what I called the version that was good enough to show in public, then I started looking for a literary agent. And luckily, within a couple of months, I was able to find a literary agent, Carolyn Ford with the Transatlantic Agency, which is a
She read it.
She read it, she liked it, she thought she could sell it. So the agent's job is really to sell it to a
When
publisher.
she read it, did she ask you to do some little changes in it?
She didn't, but the publisher certainly did, right? So the House of Anansi, which is a Canadian publisher, it's an independent
And
publisher.
it's a big name.
Been around for over 50 years. It's published some very big Canadian names.
And congratulations to you that your book has been published by them, accepted by them. That's
you.
a great
Yeah.
achievement for you.
Thank you, thank you. So what I learned, Paji, is that you think you've sort of finished writing the book, but you haven't really, because the layers and layers of details, the rounds and rounds of edits went on for almost 18 months after I signed the contract with House of Nancy. So over those 18 months, the book changed dramatically. It became more focused. It became leaner. It became there's probably another 100 or 200 pages that I wrote that had to be left out. Right? It became a much better book working with a publisher with the quality of House of Anansi. My editor there, Doug Richmond, paid a lot of attention to the detail. He was very sensitive to the cultural nuances, make sure that we capture them. I also worked with one of my nieces, Amrita, who really also brought sort of a woman's lens to the book and showed me a couple of places where perhaps I needed to change things to make sure I capture the women's perspective properly, right? So 2 of the 3 leading characters whose point of view I write from are women, right? And I have to say, putting myself in the sort of perspective of those 2 characters, I learned a lot from putting myself
that's wonderful.
in their shoes.
You must. If you didn't learn, then that's not worth it. So now you are an published novelist, published author. And what are you doing now after this? Like, I know this is very well received. CBC also has very nice words for this book. So even I read some reviews, wonderful reviews, and so what do you feel about that?
I feel very good. I mean, I feel the book is getting some good attention. Apple Books also have given it an excellent review. The book has been released in Canada and the US, so it's on bookshelves now across both those countries. You can find it at any major bookseller. I was actually downtown Vancouver yesterday signing copies at the Indigo bookstores. And the reason I'm in Vancouver is actually I've been brought here as
By the
one of
book.
the readers by the book, but for the Vancouver Writers Festival,
Yes, yes.
which is a very prestigious writers festival. They've got 88 events happening this week, and I am going to be one of the readers for 3 of those events.
That's what I was going to ask you next. Did this book open some doors for you in literary world?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, when the poetry came out over 20 years ago, I did do a couple of literary festivals. I did the Calgary Festival, and I did the Winnipeg Festival. But coming to the Vancouver Festival is such an honor and a privilege to be selected. And I think it will, longer term, open up a lot more doors for me. Particularly, I mean, I've been interviewed on the CBC twice in the last 3 months. The book reviews are all happening in prestigious magazines. You asked me what I'm doing now. I'm actually enjoying the moment of having the book out in the world and having people read it and respond to it. And but I'm also thinking about what do I want to write next. So I do have a concept of what the next story is going to be, what the next novel is going to be. At the same time, I'm putting together a new poetry collection. So
That's wonderful. Don't you feel little more challenge and burden on you because next one should be better than this one, at least equal to this one?
I welcome that challenge. I think,
Wonderful. That's good.
I welcome that challenge. I'm up to it. I learned so much from writing this book, and I'm looking forward to applying it to the next book. Those learnings, and those learnings are about how you shape a book, how you shape a character, what's important as far as narrative detail. All that learning I will be able to apply to the next book, and hopefully it won't take me 19 years.
I hope so too. And another thing, like when you first time you wrote this novel, and your agent read it, and then after that, as you said, like it was sliced by your editor.
Editor, yeah.
I think that must be a very good learning experience for you.
Absolutely. So I learned just how much work goes into bringing a book to market. So it wasn't just my editor who went through the book and edited it. I also had what's called a copy editor. And a copy editor goes through the entire book and looks at the details that you've used and actually points out where you may need to change things. So it's set in Vancouver. Have I used the right names for the streets? Have I used the right names for parts of the ocean where I'm setting the book? So the copy editor did all that work. After the copy editor, you have a proofreader. So the proofreader goes through, looks at every punctuation, every word to make sure it's correct, right? And then you have a printing editor. So once it goes to print, you have a print editor who also does a line check, looks at every word to make sure that it's correct. So I wrote the book, but it takes an entire team to bring the book to market.
It takes a village too.
Yeah, it takes a village, absolutely. Yeah.
And when it was going through print,
Yes.
is there like did they give it to you to look at it
Yes,
too?
absolutely. So there were checkpoints built into the process, so I get to look at the copy. I get to actually, even once they had the layout done for the final print, I got to look at it once more to see if there's any changes I want to make. Right? And there were still 5 or 6 changes that I made at that point.
And I want to talk about title, however far away.
Yes.
How did you come about this? And did you had few other titles in your mind as well?
The working title for the book was Settle. And if I think about thematically what I wanted to do in this book, is I wanted to explore all the different meanings of the word settle. So there's settle in terms of where you choose to build a home, right? There is settle in terms of arriving in a new country and acclimatizing to the culture. There is settle in terms of the ground shifting, which is why it's in Vancouver, earthquake country. There's settle in terms of acceptance and compromise. We think that's good enough, we're going to settle for it. Or there's also settle in terms of when you get even with someone, when you even a score, or you owe them a debt and then you have to settle the debt. There's also settle in terms of settler versus indigenous. So I wanted to write a book that captured all those different meanings
and
of the
it
word
does.
settle. Thank you, thank
does,
you, thank you. But the title, However Far Away, actually was with working with my editor and my agent. We wanted a title that we thought would probably work better as far as the marketing the book.
I think it's after reading this book, this is the best befitting title
you.
for this book.
Thank you. Thank you.
Rajinder, time goes so fast.
Yes.
In future, whenever you come, I would like to talk to you.
I would love that.
And thank you for coming, and congratulations on your novel, and best wishes for your future ventures.
Thank you very much for having me on the show. For anyone who might be interested, I am going to launch the novel in Calgary too on November the 6th. Look for details. If you go to the Calgary Folk Fest website, you should be able to get details for that. Thank you so much for allowing me this opportunity, Raji, and look forward to our future conversations.
It's our prayer, and thank you for coming. ਅੱਜ ਦੇ ਪ੍ਰੋਗਰਾਮ ਨੂੰ ਇਸੇ ਗੱਲ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ ਸੰਪੂਰਨ ਕਰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਆਉਣ ਵਾਲੇ ਸਮੇਂ 'ਚ ਫੇਰ ਮਿਲਦੇ ਹਾਂ ਕਿਸੇ ਤਰ੍ਹਾਂ ਦੀ ਹੋਰ ਵਧੀਆ ਸ਼ਖਸੀਅਤ ਦੇ ਨਾਲ। ਉਦੋਂ ਤੱਕ ਸਾਰਿਆਂ ਨੂੰ ਬਹੁਤ ਹੀ ਪਿਆਰ ਅਤੇ ਸਤਿਕਾਰ।